learn how to read and become familiar, conversant with the language of constitutionalism. In 1821, one of the amendments passed gave constitutional authority to the general court to regulate local governments, the counties and municipalities. The constitutions of the states provide an amazing amount of information. It really is a surprising amount of insight into the societies, the cultures, the governmental structures and norms of each of these eras. Our point is not to see simply what is current, but what has been and why it has been. Does that mean I can read a constitution and understand what is happening to me and my sovereignty, my rights? The question is, can I read and understand my constitution? That's the key question here. So if Squealer comes and rewrites the writing on the barn wall, will we notice? We need to understand the progression. We need to understand where it was. And I'm not saying that where it was perfect, was even good and right. That's a big question. It's an important question of determining who actually gets to participate in our social contract, in the social structure. Who gets to add their voice and who doesn't get to add their voice to how government is directed. When you go back and do some of these older readings, into these older books and these older essays, and especially into the older constitutional, the older legalistic forms, it was still being invented and developed. If you're not paying taxes, you're not part of the general citizenship. And we're not going to pay federal taxes on you because you're not supporting and participating in the society, which also means you don't get a voice in the society. Can we disenfranchise voters just because they don't pay taxes? Or is that the end-all say-all of saying you're part of this society, you're part of this government? We need to change it. We destroy what is and don't have something actually better designed and planned to replace it. The 48th Amendment is the big one. This one shifted a lot about the Constitution, mostly relating to legislative power in the people by the people. It enables them to act and function, participate wholly in the legislative process. They get to propose their own laws, propose amendments to the Constitution, as well as strike down laws that the general court has passed. We get to see different voting processes and methodologies to put extra weight in one place or another. And it's just fascinating to go through this and see how they design it, where they put special emphasis, where they make it harder or easier. This is a really important piece, and I love this division that we see here in the different types of votes, the different requirements in order to pass a certain type of bill or a certain type of amendment or change or adjustment or what have you. If it comes from the people, it only needs 1/4 of the support of the general court. It's significantly easier. If the people amend it, that is easier to pass. If the court amends it, it's harder to pass. So we have records of qualified voters in any given election. Only a percentage of those actually vote. And then even smaller still, a percentage of those will skip things. They won't vote on everything. So the 30% means we know we have this many registered voters in the state of Massachusetts. Let's say we have 58% of registered voters voting in this election. Of those 58%, we have to have at least 30% of them voting on the specific measure of this amendment. Let's say it's 25% of people who submit ballots, who actually turn a ballot in. It's not 100%, only 58% of people actually turn a ballot in, and 25% that turned the ballot in only filled in the bubble, only said yay or nay on this amendment proposal. Only 25% of them voted on that. The other 75% skipped that question and voted on other things, but not that one. If it's only 25%, it doesn't pass. You don't have a quorum to act in a legislative function. We don't have enough people voicing or participating to give it a weight of an amendment. Go through and look at what is your amendment process in your own state. and see what you can figure out. Work through the math, work through the details, work through these nuances and these separations. It's the nuances that make all the difference when running government, when dealing with the monopoly of force, of control. To go about 100 years and have 66 amendments is pretty impressive. That's pretty amazing. This is a special constitution. We need to pay the price to become 21st century statesmen and stateswomen. This is how we become authors, publishers, writers, thinkers, like the Federalist Papers authors were. Like a Hamilton, like a Madison, like a Jay, like a Jefferson, like an Adams, like a Washington, like an Abigail, like so many other men and women of that era. We need to be able to understand these details, these nuances, these forms and structures. What is a majority present versus a majority elected? What is the 30% of ballots cast versus a majority of voters on the question? Are we, or are we not, the authors, the leaders of that need to be written and structured in the 21st century?